What is going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic day today. Figured we'd do a little bit of a just random Q&A session today. And yeah, so if any good stuff pops up that you guys want to dig into, as always, ask away. Yeah, so what's new and exciting in the reefing world for you guys? I'm just curious if you guys have any new toys, anything new fun you're playing with. My only new slightly adventure has been back to breeding Bergia again, since I haven't done that in a while. That's a bit of a source of Aptasia now, so I figured I'd breed a small army to deal with it, as well as kind of keep that going if I can, so hopefully that will be good. What's going on, Phil? How you doing, ma'am? I mean, how the audio and everything is. I had about 10 seconds to prep before this one, so we just kind of jumped into it today. What's going on, Tyler? Yeah, so again, if you guys have any questions today, just shoot, ask it. This is kind of a random Q&A day today. The thumbnail, my little torch garden is silly filling out. The thumbnail I picked, snapped a quick cell phone photo, but it's starting to look pretty cool in there. I still want to hunt for more gonies. Might add a few more torches on the one rock, but overall it's doing pretty good. Audio and video looks good. Perfect. It's been a slow tweaking. I swapped my mixer, so it's been a little bit of like testing and retweaking and redialing everything in. I think my audio might be low, so I'm gonna turn it up a bit. How's the gonia tank coming? Okay, so on there, overall it's been doing fantastic. I got tons of torches and stuff over here. I don't know if I can get it to focus on there, but yeah, and tons of gonies. Like I've added one more little right there. You can kind of see there's like 4 of them on one disc. I might pop them off and separate them out. But yeah, overall it's pretty good. I still wouldn't mind finding, 6 or 7 more good ones to put in there to fill up a few more spots. But overall, really happy with how it's coming together. But it's kind of like that hard thing now. It's like when I order gonies, without seeing them in person, sometimes you're like, are you going to get a double? Is it going to be something new? You pass the gonny bug to me now. Happy to help. Happy to help and inspire. Oh no. I just spilled my drink on my mixer. Give me one sec. Who knew where to... The Avast auto feeder to the Hydros. The Avast auto feeder... Give me one sec. With the Avast, you hook it up to any controller. All right, please hold. All right, this still working? Okay, crisis averted. Hard to tell in the video. 2 MP40s in the back wall. What mode are you on? What percentage? I have 4 on the back wall in that tank, and they're all around 25 or 30%. It's probably really overkill for that tank, but I had them for my last tank, so I just reused them. I just knocked over my drink onto my mixer. Yay. Hit that like button. Yeah, definitely appreciate it. As always, guys, if you enjoy it, hit it. It keeps the YouTube gods happy. How do you get rid of vermitids? A mix of bumblebee snails and calcium carbonate powder. So if you use calcium carbonate, or it's basically the DIY coral snow. So you could buy it, you can do your own. But you basically put that in, and when their little web strings are out, they catch it as a food source, but there's 0 nutrition in it, so it will eventually starve them out. So that's kind of the main way that I've done it in the past. So bumblebee snails and the calcium carbonate power. So a bit of a mix of the two. Okay, hopefully audio, everything's still good. I think we avoided it. Cleaned up my mess. But yeah, so with the Avast plank auto feeder, you have a pump that does the mixing, and you have another pump that does the auger. So on a Hydros, you just put it on a plug, and you just adjust the time that it's on to adjust how much it feeds your tank. Audio sounds good to me. Excellent. That's good, because I just spilt like half of my drink onto my mixer. I was hoping I didn't bugger up anything. So I quickly wipe it all off. Audio's still good. Didn't skip a beat. Perfect. Meanwhile, I'm like panic in the background, mopping everything up with my reef cloth. Yeah, so But yeah, vermitid, that's one of the biggest things. It's like a mixture of biological and starving them out. It's not going to be an overnight process. It definitely takes time. So it's something you just kind of got to be persistent at, and you will eventually, hopefully, completely take them out. So I've had pretty good success with that. I mean, I wouldn't say they're 100% gone, but they're no longer at, say, plague proportions like they used to be. There's still some here and there. And the bumblebees still completely do work, but you do need a good chunk of them. Do you still use the constant outlet setting on the hydros? You could leave the mixing pump on constant. I believe mine's on a timer just because I had an outlet and I did. But yeah, you just do it like a on for 1 minute, then off type of thing for however many hours. But that's how I did mine. The other thing with vermitids too, you could break it off. You could super glue the little tubes. There's lots of ways like that as well that people have done that kind of work. But for me, that was the biggest thing. No, like right now, have a ton of Aptasia in my tank. I went to town on it with Aptasia, and it worked. But of course, I didn't get them all. Now they're coming back again, so that's why I started breeding Bergia. And if I put them in my tank now, I know there's a risk that the wrasse system of the fish might pick at some of them. So I'm purposely going to hold off for like a month and get them breeding, get a bunch of eggs and babies first and do it. That way I can have more of a continuous source. Auto elk tester of choice. I have a few different ones there. The newest one that I want to try is the Auto Aqua Whiz because it doesn't use reagent, which I think is super cool. So I definitely do want to check that one out. Whenever I find one day, I will probably get one and play with it. Now that's probably going to be the cheapest to run because there is no reagent. The previous cheapest run would probably be the Alcatronic, which I've been using for years, and also have the Apex one, which tests, the big three. So it kind of depends what you want to test. So I can't say for sure if that AquaWiz one's, the best one yet, but I am intrigued by it just for the whole reagent listing. But I haven't personally used it yet, so it's just on my to play with list. When I started my big tank, the tiny vermitid snails were exploding out of control. I added 100 bumblebee snails and DIY coral snow, and they're pretty much gone. Like you said, it took a while. Yeah, so 100% Phil. It works, but it definitely does take some time. I tried a bunch of elk testers. My favorite is the KH Care. See, I haven't tried that one yet. I think that's the one that was like pretty cheap too at Coral View a while ago. Good to know it's your favorite. Had to mess with it as much as some of the others. Okay, good to know. What's going on, Than? Welcome. I feel like there's one other question I missed during my clean up my mess. Da-da-dun. Have you tested the SG of the specific gravity of your skimmate? I have not. Never have. I will do that later though. Now I'm a bit curious. But yeah, no, I've never bothered testing it. Most of my LPS have been receding from the edges. SPS are doing fine. Tank's 7 years old. Any idea what could cause that? Waiting on ICP results. It could be a stress result. It could be bacterial. What type of LPSs are receding? Torches usually are the ones that I find are the most kind of susceptible. But yeah, let me know what type of LPS. That will help a bit. Thinking of doing a skimmate water change. That's something I'm going to try and do. Not every water change, but like once in a while I'll do it just because it takes out a lot of the organics directly. So I feel like you could get away with doing a smaller water change if you just did a skimmer-based water change because you're binding all those organics. You're removing just that but not everything else. Auto Aqua Whiz. I think it's called the Aqua Whiz. I don't know. I keep seeing it pop up and it intrigues me just because it uses, I think, fresh water and salt water and it compares the pH and somehow figures out your elk. I'm assuming you probably have to calibrate a bit more with the pH probes, but just the fact you don't have to do reagent, you can test as much as you want would be cool. So I don't know. The jury's out, but I think that's a cool potential. The question from Greedy Guppy. How can I remove the white sponges from covering the base of my LPS? They grow too fast, start to irritate my corals. So they're probably, are they just the little pineapple style sponges or are they the stringy ones? Either one, they generally will physically remove fairly easy. So that tends to not be too hard to get. I mean, if you have a dwarf angel, they'll usually eat sponges, but I haven't seen anything for quite a bit by that name. Not exactly what snuff on equipment now. Yeah. You look like the main character in Severance. I have to Google this. I'll watch it one day. Is it good? I don't know. No other big projects. I'm do Serious Reefs. They did with Elliot. Did a thing on a DIY fish trap. And it made me think I'm gonna build a big acrylic one later too. So I have like a big scrap piece of acrylic. So I'm gonna cut her up and give it a try and make one for the tank. So last time I had a copper band, had it eating, everything was well in my little fish box, and it got out into the tank, and my yellow tang was basically harassed it to the demise. So I am going to try again, but I'm debating either pulling the yellow or having him live in the acclimation box for, a few weeks or longer, and then maybe let him out and put the yellow tang in the acclimation box for a couple more weeks, and then hopefully everyone settles in and is used to each other and happy. But if someone's going to live in there for a while, I want to build like a decent sized one. So I think my next little project is going to be to build a bigger DIY fish box. Favia acans, candy canes, mazes are all receding. So yeah, you kind of have to know. I guess the first question is, are any of your main parameters out of whack? Like, is your salinity out of whack? Are you, deficient in calcium or something else? Like, take a look at all, starting with salinity, take a look at all your main parameters, make sure nothing's out of whack. And if everything is in check, and don't just say my parameters are good, because people always say that, but a lot of the time they don't actually test everything. Make sure everything is actually good and happy. And if it's not, then it could be bacteria or some other issue like that. But usually a lot of the receding is caused by either a bacteria infection or like kind of stress, or some of your parameters are out of whack. I find salinity is often too high or too low because people don't check it as much as they should. And that can throw everything off. Or, in my own tank, I've had where calcium was way lower than it should be. It would probably cause some, long-term follow-up from that. Can raising nitrates too fast have a negative effect on coral? 10 ppm is a good chunk. It very well could. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I know dropping it too fast can, so raising it too fast very well could. Like, you don't want to strip your nitrates too fast because you will absolutely cause an issue with that one. Any info on dosing Alpha Reef and Kelk? I've heard him say don't do it, but I've also heard the people that do it, and I don't think I've heard of them having any issues. So you're probably okay to do it. I don't think there'd be any major detrimentals, but again, it probably depends on the ratio and how much you're doing it. I've mixed Alpha Reef with other dosing, and it seems fine. Yeah, so Mike, I feel that 2 p.m. nitrate in a day is stressed by coral. Yeah. I've never tried raising it too fast, but I have dropped it too fast. So that's kind of how I know. So I'm assuming they'd probably stress it out in either direction. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm still using Alpha Reef on most of my tanks, and I'm pretty happy with it. Like, it's just nice because it removes that worry about trace elements overall. Like, you just know stuff's at a reasonable level. It sounds really bad too, but I haven't even tested the nano in like months. I just blindly dose the Alpha Reef, and I haven't adjusted my dose, and everything's growing and happy. So it's probably time to up it, but yeah, the easiness of it is just so convenient. I mixed up another like gallon or so for the water box the other day, and I'm dosing about 80 or 90 mils a day on that tank, on top of the calcium reactor and other stuff. And yeah, seems to be going overall pretty happy. It's funny, I don't think I have any photos, but I have one of my corals, and it was receding on the one side on the bottom. I was like, what the heck? And I was like, I don't see pests, I don't see bite marks, but it's receding. So I sent a picture to Adam from Fragrage and Beyond the Reef. Me and him were chatting. He's like, yep, just old tank, stuff's too grown together. It's just like, So sadly, I need to do some hacking. I keep talking about it, but eventually I got to actually do it and do some hacking to thin out the tank a bit. Make some room for some new stuff, let it grow out again. Kind of the fun. It's kind of weird though. It's like this weird point where you want to get your tank full and full and full, and then it's full, and then stuff just grows into each other, and you're like, okay, now it's got to thin it out. I don't like having the little frag tank looking tank, so I want everything to grow and be big. So it's always this hard battle back and forth. But the Goni tank, this is my current really fun one. I'm loving the flowiness, and I've never done strictly like a flowy tank, I guess. I always gravitate to acros and whatnot, so having just LPS in a tank is actually kind of funky for me. But it's nice having so much movement. Have you tried individual trace dosing like moonshine? Yeah, I absolutely have, and my tank looked great when I was doing it. I think the extra attention you give your tank is going to make it look better either way, but yep, probably about 2 years ago I was doing the moonshine, and I was on my dailies, and I was doing really good with it. And then I became a bit of a slacker, and now I just do kind of corrections with it, and then just do kind of more the bulk broad spectrum for my daily stuff. Aussie Dan, I've been doing Red Sea Complete Reef Care program for the last year. My corals have never looked better. Yeah, any of these programs, they make you do daily additions. I mean, so you can get away with weekly, but it makes you pay more attention to the little things in your tank. And just from giving your tank that extra attention, I find helps your tank thrive and do better, especially if you're looking at it every day. You're more likely to notice something that's off and do something about it. So I think it's kind of a side product of that is it just makes you give your tank a little more love. Any ICP better than others in your opinion? Not really. There probably is. I know some are straight ICP, some are OES, some are a mix. OES is supposedly better for some of the super micro elements, where the standard ones, better for some of the broad ones. So it's hard to say one's better than the other. But I think the biggest thing is like whatever brand you use to stick with it, because their machines might be calibrated a bit different from someone else's machine. If you jump around from brand to brand, you might not have like consistent trends, or they might be off a bit. So I like this thing, just pick one and stick to it, even though I've jumped around a bit, but try and stick to the main one. Is it me, or does it seem like copper band butterfly just don't eat Aptasia like they used to? If not, I'm crazy. Could be due to captive breeding. It's just harder to find one that does. I never see mine eat Aptasia, but I also have no visible Aptasia in my main display tank. I can see like one or two deep down in a crack, so I assume he eats it. But yeah, it is possible he stopped if you feed your tank crazy heavy with mysis and he doesn't have the urge to snack. I mean, that could affect it. I mean, maybe their taste changes. Amy, big fan of peppermint on Aptasia. Yeah, the little nudie branks, I mean, they're a little more, they're pricey, but they're so easy to breed though. Like, I have some breeding in here. See my Aptasia in there. You can see some on the side of the glass, and they're in there. They're breeding eggs. I just took a handful of Aptasia from my tank and threw them in there. So I think these guys are going to work out and be a pretty good little army. Probably can't see on camera, but I do have, a few different egg spirals already in there. So they're really easy to breed. The problem is you're going to run out of Aptasia. So you got to have a good source of Aptasia to keep it going, to keep breeding them. But like, these guys are ferocious because all they eat is Aptasia, which is the cool thing about them. So far, no shortage of Aptasia in my tank. And ironically, there's a little one sprouting on the sand bed, which is like, boop, and so easy to grab out and throw in here. So I'm going to keep doing that until I have like a small army, and then I'll put a bunch in the tank. We added a bunch of duty branks recently. Hope they do their thing and not get eaten by the fish. Yeah. So if you have certain wrasses, it is always a risk that they could get snacked on. That's probably one of the harder parts. Do you need flow for nudies? I say no. Mine are living in this container, and they've lived in jars on my desk. Like every once in a while, I'll add some flow. Like I'll just take a turkey baster and go a bit there, but I don't think they need much. Just like room temperature, like they're pretty easy, honestly. Every once in a while, I'll take a turkey baster every few days and just like blow a bunch of bubbles in there just to reoxygenate it a bit. Should do a water change once in a while, but I find them super duper easy. Like they've grown on jars on my desk. So easy. And the thing is, like, if you add them right away, there's a chance, you may never see them again. I added, 6 to my nano, and I think I only found 1 afterwards, so I moved into this tank, and who knows if he's still in there or not. So I just ordered 10 or 12 more, and then I'm going to let them, breed for a while, and then I'll start adding to my tank, just so I can kind of keep that population going. And they'll still do their job and clean up my Aptasia, and then I can use them in other tanks later, and, nice to have a little supply. Plus, I have that tank that was helping a buddy do some maintenance on it, and it's like 10-foot tank that had like a healthy population of Aptasia. So I have a good backup source if I run out, which I think will be key to long-term success in this breeding program. But yeah, super duper easy to do. You can absolutely use an air pump, but I don't think you have to. I had a problem with Bergia getting blown off the rocks. I see little hairs all over the tank. Yeah, I mean, in an acro tank that's like super crazy high flow, it would be more of a risk. What are your radions, pros or blues? I have pros. I like a little bit whiter look than just like the bluey Windexy look. Like I do like the blue pop, but I find the blues with whites added, you get more colors. Like you get more of a full spectrum of vibrant colors versus just like the bluey neons. Like you don't appreciate like the pinks and the reds and a lot of the other colors under just blues. So I personally like the pros. Aptasia is undefeated. It's relentless. Best way to lower pH. Not a custom reactor. How high is your pH? Hillbilly Reefer. I've used Bergias with success, but after all the Aptasia was gone, sold, gave away the Bergia, the Aptasia came back with no introduction of anything new to my reef. Leave one alive. Yeah, that's the thing. They could be in your overflow pipe. They could be in your sump. They're somewhere in your tank. So the odds are they're hiding. And probably the only person that can get them is those little Bergias. But again, it's going to be a lot harder for them to, clear out your overflow box and your pipes and all that type of stuff. So I figure if I have a little breeding operation, then it's easy to just add some every randomly. Yeah, so best way to lower, there is stuff like dosing acids that will lower pH. Like if you dosed, like vinegar or vodka or, some of the auto testers use an acid-based reagent. And if you dose that to your tank, that will lower it to a certain extent. I guess the first thing is I'd calibrate your pH probe and see if it's actually 9 and make sure it's just not like a false reading. And then you got to look at what are you doing to increase your pH. Most people are trying to push it up. So, the easy freeway, first of all, you got to ask, is your room really high CO2 and is that why your pH is suppressed? So, open the window. If you see a big pH boost, then you're like, okay, it's because, my house is really sealed tight and there's not a lot of oxygen exchange. So, I mean, summertime, if the windows are open, your pH goes way up, and then that's an easy way to tell. Like, I had an air exchanger in my house, which definitely helped that. There is other stuff you could do, like take an outside air line from your skimmer input. So on the silencer, a little tube, hook that up and run a little tube outside and have that sucking in fresh air. You can use soda lime pellets and make a little recirculator with your skimmer, and that will boost it up. Or, you can use refugium with like a higher power light and use the reverse photosynthesis with the algae to kind of boost it and take out your lows. Or if you want to be a mad scientist, you can do something like playing with hydroxides and dose those reverse light cycle, or actually all throughout the day. But I don't really recommend this because it is nasty stuff, but it will bind to the carbonic acid in the water, and it kind of helps remove it or changes it, neutralizes it, whatever it does. And by removing the carbonic acid, you're raising the pH. So they're like super powered for that, but it's corrosive, it's nasty stuff. So it's not something I'd recommend for most. Okay. Gen Coop 3.8. Hey Dev, I upgrade my new tank bigger. Heck yeah. In taking minimal old rock to the new tank. I already moved some rock to seed the new tank. Should I scoop some sand? I only moved out the cleanup crew. I would do some sand. I wouldn't do tons of sand, but sand does have crazy amounts of surface area, so I would probably take a few scoops of it and just sprinkle it all out through your sand bed just to like help mix it in. But your sand definitely has a lot of surface area. I guess it depends. If you vacuum your sand bed and it's like a clean sand bed, I'd probably take more of it. If you never vacuum it and it's just like black and dirty and nasty when you disturb it, then I probably wouldn't. But a little bit's probably safe. Do you have to dose manganese separately for your Goni tank or just all for reef good enough? So far, just all for reef. Last time I did an ICP, I did a few corrections on it. Let me see if I dose manganese in my corrections. If I have my sheet still somewhere. Give me 2 seconds. I'll see if I can find it. Let's see if it's in my Excel history. I don't remember where I saved it. Molybdenum, rubidium, boron, bromine. That's a water box. I don't see manganese on that one. I don't think so. So I think between water changes and off reef, I think it actually has been keeping up fairly well. But it's something to keep an eye on. Like, that being said, once my tank's all gonies, all growing, there probably will definitely be a little more attention to manganese at that point. But so far, all for reef is doing a good job. Kevin Hazel, I recently added a copper band for Aptasia control. I had to pull up my yellow tank and Regal Angel for a few weeks so he could get established. I am in that same boat. Same boat here. And same thing. I'm debating if I pull my yellow out. Did you put him in a different tank? Did you put him in the sump? Did you put him in a acclimation box? What'd you do with them? I am curious. Because I'm 100% having that same problem where I'm just debating what I do with my yellow tank during that period. Because he's a jerk to new fish. And it's tricky because you really want that new one to settle in. 50-gallon bro front I put them in. Okay, that's perfect. Fish aggression is the worst. Yeah, everyone else is fine. It's literally just my yellow that's a bit of a punk. And he's kind of the jerk of the tank. And I'm half tempted to put him in my water box where there's a bunch of other tanks, so it'd be like spread out. But I also don't really want to risk starting, this new little war in my big tank if he becomes too much of a jerk to everybody. Because that would be no fun. So yeah, I don't know. Fish aggression is a pain. Everyone else in the tank is happy, but I have lots of Aptasia, and copper band's one of my favorite fish. So I do want to add them. What's the whiskey? Is it American contraband? This is the bamboo rum right now. It's tasty. I spilled half it. Made me sad on my desk. But yeah, bamboo craft rum. It's quite tasty. A little bit sweet. It's good taste. Cheers. Yeah, it's really good just to like sip on it. So recommended. If you like a little bit of a sweeter tinge. Like, I don't like super sweet, but just a little smooth. It's good. So actually here, random question for you guys. Is it rum? It is rum. It's good stuff. It's just good sipping on its own. Okay, what do you guys think? In here. So there are some mushrooms. Everything else in the tank is either torches or gonies. It was going to be goni only, but I somehow got sucked into doing torches, so now I have a bunch of torches. Yeah, I think I'll keep the one island as torches. Oh, the other thing I was debating too is because one of the recommendations usually with fish is to also like mix up the tank a bit. So I'm a little bit debating. Can I make this fit? It's still in the way of the tank. Yeah, so also kind of half debating if I move the torch rock to the left-hand side of the tank and then move the gonies to the right-half side of the tank, strictly just for like the mixing up the tank if I re-add the tank afterwards so he doesn't have his territory. That's one of my thoughts, to just like mix it up a bit. But I thought your nano was going to be gone only. It was supposed to be gone only, and then I failed because when I was taking down the tank, there are certain corals I liked, and I didn't want to get rid of them, so I threw them in the nano. And then it is no longer goni only. So that's why this tank was going to be the goni only tank. But then I was dabbling with importing some corals, and I imported a box of gonies. But there wasn't enough to fill a box. So then I ended up getting some torches. And then here we are. We have an island of torches, and then 2 goni islands. So we'll see. I don't know. Part of me wants to maybe add a couple more funky torches, and the other part of me just wants to do strictly gonies. So this is the closest I've been to a goni only tank. It's like progress for me. It sounds funny, but bad. But I've been trying to do like a goni only tank for a while, and I keep failing. But this one's pretty darn close. So if anyone's in Canada has super cool gonies, wants to trade at some point, let me know. Australia. Welcome from Australia. I need another tank. I'm at 3. 3 is my limit. I said 2 is my limit, and somehow I have 3, so. You know, though, like, I could almost have a torch tank, and I could almost have a goni only tank, because they're also pretty. I do quite like it. Wonder if it's probably not the right size, but I just want to see if this will show up or not if I hold this up. That's not focusing on it. Let's try. There we go. There. You can kind of see better now. But yeah, the torches I think turned out super cool. Like, I think that rock turn's awesome. I got a short one there. There's another short one in the back you don't really see. I should almost move that down front because the rest are like longer and flowy. And then the gonies over here, freaking love. Like, I'm just obsessed with like the rainbow of goni colors. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just like a nice change to have a super flowy tank from, I'm normally obsessed with acros, but it's just a nice change. Now this tank is looking good. Thank you, thank you. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Just something I haven't done. And for me, just because once you've been reefing for like many, many years, just mixing it up is just kind of like freshens it up and, bring some of that excitement. It's fun to hunt corals again, all that stuff. So that's kind of what the Niles tank did. It's kind of like revive the passion a bit, and it's, back to that collecting mentality, and it's fun. And now it's like the hunt for gonies is never ending. But it's funny because even looking at it now, some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. So even now I want to like rearrange some so the shorter ones are in the front, the longer in the back. And my acropora are almost hitting the water level. Snip, snip. Yeah, same. Like my green slimer is probably about that far from the water surface. I do a water change and it's way out of the water. And same with a lot of mine. So I think I might, this is going to be harder, but usually if you cut off the tops, usually it looks a bit funny, although it heals over quick. But I might cut it out and cut the bases off, which usually some of the bases are dyed off a little bit, and then re-glue them down lower to like re-lower the tank, and then take out some chunks of stuff just to open it up more. What do you think of the Fluval Aqua Sky Light? I have not used that, but I will quickly Google it and see. $12 to $33. So I mean, depending on the tank. For a shallower tank, it would probably work well. At 12 or 33 watts, though. Yeah, depends on the depth of the tank. I wouldn't use it on a super deep tank, but on a nano or shorter tank, it would probably do the job. But yeah, they're not like a hardcore reef light by any stretch. But if you have like a 12-inch deep or 14-inch tank, I'm sure you're fine. Ever got planted tanks? I was hardcore into planted tanks before I got into reef tanks. I used to breed the Neocardinia shrimp, I think they're called. Like the crystal reds and blacks, and I had little fancy tanks. See if I can find a picture. Fish. I had some pictures on an old website, but yeah, those used to be fun. I used to like breeding those. What was it called? I had a Innovative Marine with the rounded edges, Nuvo 16. That was really cool planted. What do you think of Joe's Juice anti-Aptasia? I have not used Joe's Juice. I've used Kelp Paste. I've used Super Glue. Aptasia X, which I didn't find worked that well. Aptasia, honestly, is probably one of the best solutions. You could shoot it. I've heard lime juice. You could shoot it with like a hydroxide or calc. Hi from Austria. Waterbox AO60. 4 Radion extra 15 blues. I buy an Acrofrag. After 2 to 3 weeks, they lose color, getting green and dying. Are they getting green after they turn white, or are they turning green like the flesh is turning green? Or do they die, then the skeleton turns green from algae? A non-crazy par meter. Honestly, you kind of, if it's just like a one-time set and forget it, like rent one or borrow one off somebody. I have a fancy Apogee one, which is amazing, but it's like $500 meter. Like, but I use it for reviewing lights and other stuff, so it's not like it's overkill for the average home user. They do have the little water parameter one that's like $200. That you can use it for testing your tank when it's new. Plugs into a laptop. Not the most accurate in the world, but it gets you close enough, and it's like relatively inexpensive. I'm blind blanking on the name though. They're called Senai. Yeah, so if you can find a Senai, that's probably a cheap way to do it. Or ITC, yeah, that's another good option. Yeah, no, ITC is actually basically like a Senai. Close enough. But yeah, either one of those would probably be your better inexpensive one. I think the ITC is a little more expensive than the Senai though. If you got more cash though, like the Apogees are awesome, but they're definitely a little more premium. I've got one around $250 off Amazon for Reba. Haven't heard of that one. Oh, there you go, Reba. That's not a bad price for $250. You are covered. Da-da-da. What else is new and exciting? I've been actually digging the edge lights quite a bit. These guys on this guy, they have a very nice like color pop spectrum on this tank, which I quite enjoy. There, almost even. I've been slowly playing with them and doing like little tweaks to the schedule over time, but I find like, you know, there's certain points of the day where you look and the colors just look like perfectly like amazing. So I gotta like find these certain points of the schedule and like tweak those for longer periods. But it's like around 3 o'clock, whatever my schedule is at that time, it just looks extra good, that perfect little color blending. But yeah, I've been really stoked for the tank looks really good under those. And the fans are at least on 50%. Never even hear them, which is good. Is it true that using interceptor is good for your display tank? I have not tried it, but if you have pests on your corals, that could work. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd necessarily use my tank. That's Dan can probably answer that one. Right, Dan? Are you in here? Yeah. I'm always like hesitant on like, you know, the bomb approaches on a display tank. That being said, you know, if a bunch of stuff isn't doing well, some, you know, controversial, but some stuff like an antibiotic can have positive results. With par wise, 259 to 350 par. They first get green like algae and after white. Huh. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Are you dipping your new corals when you buy them right away? That could be another thing. If you are too aggressive at dipping, you're dipping too long, your dip is too strong, especially on a brand new frag that's already stressed out, that could be taking them out too. So that's something else to consider. Every copper band I add to my tank always dies. A lot of people have issues with copper bands. I don't know if that's the source, if that's how they're collected, if it's, you know, not getting to eat. I've had really good luck with getting mine to eat. My only recent issue is my yellow tang. But normally, what I find the best thing that works, going to a seafood market and getting fresh manila clams that are on ice and go throw them in the freezer and add one to the tank every couple days. For whatever reason, almost every copper band I've tried this with has went and ate the manila clams. And that's been fantastic because it gets them eating. And that's always the biggest hurdle, is getting them eating at first. Yeah, and tangs pick on them. That's the problem. Usually the yellow tangs, I don't know if they're too close in body shape or it's just the color, but they can be more jerks, at least for the first, you know, few weeks. So ideally you want to quarantine them for a few weeks, or quarantine your tangs for a few weeks, and let them settle in, make sure they're eating and healthy and all that jazz first. And if it's from tank aggression, then yeah, you definitely need to do that. And I had a very similar issue, which is why I keep debating my game plan before I add another one again. I don't have a par meter, but my sand is having algae. Could be an indicator that the light is sufficient for the corals. Your sand is having algae. That doesn't mean light is sufficient for corals. I mean, it probably is sufficient for corals, but it also probably means you don't have enough flow in your tank, or your tank is super new and there's nothing for bacteria or other stuff to outcompete the algae yet. So how old's your tank? That's the first question on that one. But yeah, so usually it depends what type of algae too, right? Because usually if your sand tumbles a little bit, it prevents it from getting a lot of stuff on it. So there's a few different things to unpack with that one. Why is my tank water filled with microbubbles? Probably your skimmer. And if not your skimmer, yeah, it's probably your skimmer. Usually it's your skimmer. If it's outputting a bunch of microbubbles, making it back through overflow. I mean, it could be a waterfall effect somewhere in your tank. It could be, creating a little vacuum sucking air, like a little whirlpool at the surface where it sucks in air and spits it out. There's lots of different things that cause microbubbles. But generally, to not have them, one, you make sure your skimmer isn't spewing out bubbles. You got to play with your skimmer and adjust it. And two, make sure like your overflow and your sump and none of these areas are having super big drops or just subtle ones, so they're not crashing and making all bubbles. Garrett, I'm having a new tank made. It's definitely overkill. It's acrylic 1-inch thick. That is overkill. And only 60 gallons. That is crazy overkill. What are your recommendations for a magnet that will work on my power heads? You need pretty beefy power heads to get through that 1-inch thick. Yeah, you could probably take a standard power head and put a bigger magnet on the outside, and that would probably work. But yeah, 19 mil or like 3/4 is the thickest I've ever went, so I've never tried doing an inch thick. But I know one thing that did work on my prior tanks, I did when I had MP40s on my original Peninsula, and then there was acrylic on top of the glass for the back wall, so it's slightly too thick for it. So I took my hot glue gun and I hot glued the dry side onto it, and then the magnet strength was enough to kind of like click it together. So, I mean, you could try something like that. That might work too. Like an MP60 in that. Probably a bit overkill, but food for thought. Queen of Blood, 9 months. I've never had algae on the sand bed, but now I increase the light intensity and sand is growing brown algae. That could just be diatoms. But yeah, you could also just turn your light back down. Marine Josh, you have a nice soft voice. You should make ASMR videos. Maybe. Thank you. I've done I do keep thinking about starting a second YouTube channel. I don't know. It might be more like techie stuff, but one day it might happen. I keep dabbling in it, debating, because I do a lot of like IT and techie stuff and security things and different things, so it might be fun. Have you tried mangroves in your tank? I just ordered 3 of them and put them in my water box 10-gallon cube. Many years ago, I have tried them. I don't often find them for sale in my area, so it's been a while. I would probably try them again. But yeah, I think they are fun. They're cool to have. You basically just make sure you use a bit of RODI and mist and wipe off the leaves if there's any salt creep buildup on them. Make sure the roots and stuff aren't damaged, and usually they're pretty easy. Any ideas on stocking a 10-gallon that isn't a clownfish? Well, stocking with fish or other stuff. Like, I also think it's kind of cool to do a ton of inverts in a small tank. There's tons of really cool ones. Like in my 14-gallon, I've tried to find all the weirdest inverts I can, like orange decorator sponge crabs and like white spotted anemone shrimps. Like, there's so many cool different creatures that you can do. But yeah, there's like yellow watchman gobies. There's the green watchman goby. There's like bicolor blennies. What else do we get in a nano? You could do a pistol shrimp goby pair. There's like Hectors or court jester gobies. Those guys stay pretty tiny. They're very elusive, but flaming prong goby or a yasha goby, I don't know if the Asha's the same, but the flaming prawn goby, but they're very tiny and very elusive. ASMR Patreon talking about tech. Could be. I don't know. Are many of you guys into like IT techie things? Like, I don't know. I am curious how many people would be interested if I did it. I'd probably start a separate channel just to not mix the two. But have you ever done in-tank antibiotic treatments? Yes, I have. What do you like to do afterwards to reintroduce the beneficial bacteria that might have been wiped out? I don't think it is all wiped out. I have done a couple doses of either Cipro or Amox when I had some torches. Actually, in my Nion's tank, when I first got the torches, because they were freshly imported, there was a couple that, it wasn't quite 100%. And I did do a couple doses, like a few days apart, of antibiotics in the tank. And I didn't really do anything to introduce new bacteria afterwards. And it kind of worked out. It does diminish under the UV lights. So it does go away on its own. Like even on the bottles, they're in those like yellowy medical bottles because the light will break it down. And so it kind of does break down on its own after a few days. So honestly, I didn't really do anything afterwards. Let the UV and skimmer off for a day or two and then turn it back on afterwards. Not in IT, but I call them for work when my computer plays. I'm into techie stuff. I'm a software dev leader and write Python in my spare time. Sounds like fun. Is the white stuff that grows on the glass a type of algae? It's usually more of a bacteria. What is the best reading for phosphate and nitrate that's safe for corals and fish? That is a very broad question. Safe for fish is extremely broad. Like nitrate's less than probably 100 for fish. Phosphates, I've heard people have 2 or 3 or, up there. Corals don't like it quite as high. They can absolutely adapt to it. But for corals, I'm going to say, I've had them as high as like 80 at times. But mine are probably around like 50 now in the water box. In this tank, they're probably at 30 or 40. Phosphate, I like them less than 1 ideally. So if it's 0.3 to 0.09, I'm happy. If they're above 1, then I'm like, yeah, it's a little high. But I've heard of people having them at, like 1.5 and still have beautiful tanks. So I think corals will adapt to a variety of ranges, but you just don't want to shock it. Like you don't want to dump in a bunch of GFO and suck them down from super high to nothing because that will stress out and it can kill your corals. And they do need phosphate. So if you strip them to 0, you can also lose corals. So I think the biggest thing is gradually doing these changes in whichever direction you're trying to push your tank. Are you going to get a bigger aquarium, 500 gallons plus? If I moved to like a house that had the right space for it, I'd probably do a big cool one. In my current house, 200 gallons is probably about as big as I'd go just because I don't have space for bigger. But I don't know. If I had like, a basement tank with like the right room, I still think it'd be cool to do like a big L, not an L, but like the corner of like a room and like a media room where you can see 2 sides of the tank. I think, and have like a sump room behind it. I think that'd be like a cool setup that'd potentially do like a, half built-in look like that in the right space. Air conditioning in a closed environment lowers pH. Any cons? As long as you're not too low in pH, you're fine. Like you don't want to be, I wouldn't want my pH lower than 7.8. If it's like 7.85 and up as like the lowest, I think you're okay. How many gallons is considered a mega tank? I don't know, probably like, I'd say 500 plus, you're getting to pretty big boy tanks. Like, some people would say like my 6-foot tank is like super big, my 600 gallon one, but I don't know, it's like not 600, 6 foot. But to me, it's like a nice size. It's like that 180, 200. And then, but if I was going to like an 8 or 10 foot tank or super deep one, then yeah, but there are little considerations. Do you dose calc waster based on pH or stick to CO2 scrubber? I just dosed it until I hit max saturation in my tank, but I had a lot of supplementation that I could do in mine. Some people do it based on pH, if you look more at the Meckley method, but really depends on your personal preferences. I've just used it as more of a overall raise of the pH baseline when I was dosing it. What brand are you using to dose trace elements? I have a very special blend. My dailies are coming in with Ultra Reef primarily, so I guess that would be Tropic Marin. I also have their A and K on a doser, which I also do to my tank. I have a bunch of the Moonshiner stuff I'll use for corrections, but I also have like random brand stuff as well, so it's really a mix. Do you dose calc more at night or evenly spaced out? I've done both methods, and they both kind of have their advantages. Like if you dose it 24/7, it kind of boosts your pH a little bit higher overall. Or if you do just at night, then it kind of helps remove a bit of the dip. So you can go either way. Anyone had problems with reef flowers, pearl white substrate? Never used that one. Do anemones also have zooxanthellae? Probably, yeah. Anything that kind of has that fluorescent photosynthesize, I would say, would have zooxanthellae in it. I could be wrong. I'm not a biologist, but I would assume so. Because they take in light energy, so it makes sense. Have you ever dealt with ick/velvet? Yes. Velvet, not a good time. Ick, I've never really worried about. If it was like deathly bad, yes, okay. But if it's just a little bit, I find as long as your fish are healthy, your tank water is good, you're not stressing them out, they're fine on their own to get rid of it. Velvet's nasty because it will take out everything in short order, so that's a bad day. Yeah, so velvet's definitely one to avoid. I once had a very sad time dealing with it, where I had a fish that someone imported that I thought was cool because it was like a gold and dwarf angel, something like that, and it brought something in, and I was transitioning tanks at times. So I put in my temporary tank, and it wiped out almost every fish that was in that tank. So that was a very sad day. So yeah, I definitely got to watch for it on some of that stuff. And yeah, no signs, and just within a week, everything was done. So velvet is nasty, nasty. I think it's better to proactively treat with copper. I've kind of migrate on that one. For a while there, I was like hardcore and I'd pre-treat everything. When I was doing it, I was doing about a 2-week quarantine, and I was using copper power because I did find that to be the more gentle of all the copper treatments. And so it'd be like the therapeutic level of copper power, and I would do a dose of ProziPro, and then wait a week, and then do another dose of ProziPro, and then after that, I pretty much consider them good. So that was my method of kind of like a basic quarantine, which I felt covered the majority of things. But the LFS I buy stuff now, like he kind of pre-does treats a little bit, so I just haven't bothered doing it myself in a while, but that's what I used to do. Who's feeding what to have higher nitrates and phosphates? I'm maintaining 10-1, but I can't find food combo with dosing nitrates. Well, I primarily feed sushi nori in the day. So not every day, but a good chunk of time I'll put sushi nori in. And then I use frozen pea mysis at night. And I always have high nutrients. I also don't rinse my food, so that's probably part of it, but that's all the kind of correlations. But I also have a very heavily stocked tank, so that doesn't help either. But if anything, I'm usually fighting to get mine down. So trying to get a little better at water changes. I'm trying to do like monthly water changes now. And it's my goal for the year. Do monthly water changes, be a bit better at it. Keeps things happy. How effective is a Chaeto reactor at lowering nitrates versus phosphates? I mean, it's going to lower both. Like any algae that's growing is going to be exporting. How effective is a Chaeto reactor? I mean, depends how bright's your light, how much Chaeto's in there. It's hard to say. I would say, like, in general, if you're lazier, just do a straight up normal refugium because it has more space to grow. You can ignore it for longer. A Chaeto reactor is a bit more work because you got to take it apart and clean it. But if you don't have a refugium or space, then it's kind of takes up for that. It kind of gives the space to grow outside of your tank. Turf scrubbers, I find they probably work the best just because they grow hair algae, which is a simpler algae that grows faster. But again, you got to keep on maintaining it more often. So effective at lowering traces too. Yep. Algae will absolutely eat up your traces too. Do you bolus dose or space it out over the day? I always space it out. I've never fully done the bolus dose. Like, I haven't tried that. I mean, I have when I was a new reefer, didn't have a doser, I just dumped it in. There's your bolus. But I haven't, done it since then, and since this is resurfaced as a thing. I don't know. To me, the jury's still out. I don't really see the big advantage of a single dose versus spreading it out. I still feel like spreading it out just keeps things more stable. But I don't know. If anyone's been doing it for a while, let me know. I'm always curious to hear the different perspectives. The best way to eradicate blue cove polyps. I got a frag and they spread on my rocks. Yeah, they're a bugger. Febenzidol. If you dose febenzidol, you can kill them with it and you can take them out. But it can also take out xenia and rainbow cloves and other stuff like that. So you need to make sure you don't have any other soft polypy corals that you're attached to that you might lose. Yeah, Angel Flakes fish food supposedly that has it in it. Or if you can find febenzidol, or there used to be a brand called fish benzidol. That was more aquarium marketed branded one. I don't know if it's still for sale, but I bought some of that years ago. But febenzidol is the active ingredient that you want that will take them out. Angel Flakes Dewormer 1 is gone from their site. Dun dun dun. It's too bad. I feel like, I don't know. I want to get some of that and try it, but I also didn't want to lose all my rainbow clove polyps. Do you dose / keep phyto and copepods? I don't know what Benepeds is, but copepods. Good thing you got a bag. I don't think they ship to Canada, or else I would have bought a bag. I used to grow and dose phyto on a regular basis, and I think the tank was pretty damn happy when I did it. So it was good. I used to breed copepods too. I used to dump in my tank all the time. Tank loved it. It would be very expensive to buy it all the time and do that, but if you have the time and space, it's also fairly easy to grow them. Adri, Idaho Reef, tank of the month. Oh man, I gotta Google your tank now. Dun, dun. Nice looking tank. Beautiful tank, sir. Got a bag sent to me from some friends because he has a massive acroflower outbreak. Yeah. Any pointers to lower nitrates and phosphates? Any pointers to lower nitrates and phosphates are originally low. Okay. I don't know how common this product is. It's a bit niche, but there was a company called Orca Labs, and they had something called NitroGuard. And it's like these little sugar crystal looking chunks of stuff that's like a carbon dosing that dissolves. You put in a bag and you put a little air pump. And mine were at 80 and it brought them down to 15 over a month or 4 or 5 weeks from doing it. You just put it in the sump and bubble it. And it was super slow dose and it worked very, very well. If you can find that worked extremely well. And it was a nice, slow, gradual decline, which I think is the perfect way to do it. Anthony Hernandez, thank you very much for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate that. Double. Damn. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it, buddy. A butane torch is effective at killing blue clove polyps if you can remove the rock from the tank. Use a shield. Don't blow up your rock though. There's a few other things to worry about. 1 milk polyp free now. Yeah, I mean you could blowtorch it, you could calc paste it, you could super glue it, you could try febenzidol. You definitely got a few options there. Anthony, thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, Phil, good to hear you're slowly doing better, buddy. You don't eat it that long. I guess it's pretty quick. That's fair. Do you have a problem of low nutrients in your nano tank? Low phosphates and nitrates? I haven't tested my nano tank for nitrates and phosphates in quite a while. Ask me next stream. I will attempt to find my testers and test it. Yeah, I don't even know what that tank is. I haven't tested it. Shamelessly, I haven't tested elk or nitrates or phosphate on it in quite a while. It just gets its couple mils a day and gets the water change every few weeks and it's happy as can be. So it's working. I did. Although sadly though, I did lose my heliofungia on me. I don't know what happened when I came back from vacation. It was almost done, so something happened while I was away. But aside from that, the tank has been pretty happy across the board. Otherwise, smells terrible. I believe that. Dun-dun-dun. Phil, when you're up for it, you'll have to come on the stream again, buddy. Awesome. Be seeing you at Rap Cali. Oh, you're going to Rap Cali. Hopefully, I might try and go to that one. It sounds like it will hopefully be a good one. It sounds like a few guys are gonna go too, which should be pretty cool. Dun, dun, dun. Nice, Phil will be there. Looks like I should have to try and make this one work. Say hi to Brazil, man. I'm a huge fan. Philippe, shout out to Brazil, buddy. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Can bleach / stretched out corals regain color? Yes, they can. Usually you want it to be lower light though. And they can recover. I've had stuff recover from, hardly anything, and there's still a few polyps live and recover. So absolutely can. But again, it's like a long-term game for that to happen. You'll like it. Pretty good time. Yeah. Ari, if you've never done the wraps, like they're fun. It's just like a great social event and geek out over reefing. I do live streams as a fix in between shows. It's just fun to geek out over stuff. But do you work with something outside of reefing? I do. I do IT, and I do a lot of techie stuff. So I'm very techie. That's kind of why I love a lot of the automation, all the other stuff. It's like, I play with tech stuff in the day stuff, like networking and firewall and security and pen testing and all types of random stuff. So it's fun. I like the automation, all that stuff is kind of just like a fun part of the hobby for me. So I tend to go a bit deep into it. Set up, yeah, all kinds of random crazy stuff out there. Home automation stuff's fun. That's more of a hobby, but lots of good stuff out there. So I don't know. It's a completely side topic, but just out of curiosity, because I keep having this thought of doing a second YouTube channel. It would probably be techie stuff. I don't know. Might be other stuff. I'm still deciding. I'm curious how many people would actually like watch or be interested. If it's a very small percentage, or if like more would. Are you still a fan of the Mastertronic and Algatronic? I think they are very useful devices. Especially the standalone. If you don't have a controller and you want more of a standalone one, I think it's a very good solution. Soundproofing is a good one. Dan, me and you're gonna have to come on my second channel. We're just gonna talk about soundproofing for an hour. Yeah. So Dan led me down the rabbit hole of fancy soundproofing stuff, and which ended up redoing like the whole wall behind me. So this is all. Let's see if I not mess up my camera mount, but see this works. So whole back wall I did in sound panels, which made a massive difference for the office. And then the whole roof I also did in fancy sound panels, which made a massive improvement for the acoustics in this room. Got rid of all the echo and sounds a bazillion times better than it used to. There, hope the camera holds. So it was definitely a rabbit hole, but yeah, looks nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I kind of like alternated like the wood look panels and with the blue thing, which I kind of did to match like the ReefDudes logo and tie in that kind of theme. And I think it turned out awesome. Like the acoustics in here is like a bazillion times better. Like it was so echoey before. So better live stream sound, and the room's quieter. Like all that stuff was like win-win. Algatronic is loud but works great. Yeah, you need the pump A or whatever that one is loud, and they had a little kit where you put little gaskets in it, which made a big difference. And I found if the screw was touching the plastic, it was way louder. And if you like adjusted just right so it was floating and not touching it, and it got rid of like a ton of the volume. So if you have that meh sound, usually you can like loosen the screw and like finagle a little bit and then retighten it and get rid of it. Looks great in there. Thank you, Mike. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up fairly soon, but if there's any other questions that anyone wants to ask, fire away. I need to make sure I didn't kill anything on my mixer from spilling on it earlier. But yeah, fun one. I don't know. I like these random Q&A ones. They just go off whatever questions come. It's nice and relaxed. It's good. How's the Nias skimmer holding up? I'm not using the Nias skimmer right now, but it's on my buddy's tank and it's doing well. I went down a rabbit hole a while ago of my trying to make everything quiet as possible, and I got a Bubble King when they were on cheap from BRS. So I have the mini 200 on one tank and the 160 on another tank, and they're like insanely quiet. Are you hoping to? Oh God, 51st date. You know, the world is a very strange place right now. It's hard to say what's going to happen out there. You know, it would make it easier to ship corals. I don't know about the rest of it, but it'd make it easier to ship corals. Totally new to saltwater and planning my first tank. I am looking at a Red Sea G2 XXXL, but everywhere I look at is sold out. What is your approach when you're sourcing kit out of stock? That's trickier. Usually I just like have the handful of sites and just keep watching them and check it out. Or, you know, some sites have stock alerts and you just set it up for alert. I mean, or look at, you know, Waterbox, another option than one of their big tanks, you know, as a comparison for the corals. What's your opinion on Dino X? I lost 2 clowns. Oh no, that's no good. I haven't used Dino X, so I do not know on that one. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap her up because I'm slightly tempted to pop up my mixer, make sure no liquid got inside. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight's random Q&A live stream. Hopefully it was nice and fun. We will, I don't know, probably do these. I think once a month I just like doing the random ones and just go off the random questions at whatever you guys want to chat about. And if anyone has anything you want me to do a live stream on specifically, let me know, because I do them every week, so it's always good to have more good ideas. Yeah, thank you guys. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. As always, hit that like button. You're new, make sure you subscribe. Anthony, thank you for the super chat, sir. Much appreciated. And I will catch you guys on next week's stream. Have a good night, guys. Cheers.